What are some common hurdles family offices face when going green?
When going green, I think the first and biggest hurdle is your strategy needs to match with the complex of the instrument. So if you are going sustainable,
Which asset class from these do you think show the most promise for sustainability?
I believe renewable energy is most easy. It's something that we have been seeing as we were growing. And if you were to travel to Europe and you will see all those wind energy mills, those power stations, I think they are the easiest ones to bring up. And then comes private equity, private debt, because
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Green Generation podcast. Today, we're going to explore the intersection of innovation, values, and impact. I'm your host, Shruti Seetharaman, an entrepreneur, a content creator, and a sustainability advocate. And today, we're diving into a space that balances legacy and responsibility. So, we're talking about family office management and the shift towards sustainable investments. And I'm joined by someone who has helped guide many family offices through this complex yet deeply rewarding transition. Welcome, Mr. Yash Vardan Singh.
Thank you, Shruti.
He's a partner at HBS Middle East, and we're going to dive right in. So, what makes family offices different from regular investment firms?
It's a great question, Shruti. Thank you so much for having me here, and it's a pleasure. Interestingly, family offices are very personal and deeply personal in nature from the context perspective. If you compare family offices, roles from banks, from private banks, institutions, mutual funds, hedge funds, I think family offices play a role which is done very discreetly. It is managed in a way that efficiency is at its peak, and at the same time, you try and focus on ESG parameters.
Okay. And how do personal family values shape investment decisions?
Well, I think 100% personal values are the most important thing when it comes to taking any decision making on investments. So the first and the foremost thing is, what is the hierarchy of the family is looking like, right? You have to understand that the thought is very clear. You have to keep your investment agendas in front of you. You have to plan the thesis in advance and also take small steps towards investments. It's not just making returns. It's not just generating ROI. It's also about investing beyond that, next generation, about legacy, about asset transfers. So all those, are part of the play.
Okay. And have you seen generational shifts that play a role in prioritizing sustainability?
That's a very interesting question. So, Shruti, just to give you a little perspective, there are total 15,000 family offices globally, worldwide, okay? And to give you some more perspective on the size, we're talking about $10 trillion of assets which are being managed by these family offices. And to give you some reflection, the entire hedge fund industry would manage about $6.5 trillion. So that's a comparison we're talking about.
Okay.
Now, the next generation which is stepping in, they want more than returns. They are not just focused at managing assets, growing assets, having 1x, 2x, 5x returns. Their focus is, what are we leaving behind? What are we doing for the environment, for the climate change, for the society? And I think these questions are important.
Interesting. So understanding sustainability, how do you define sustainable investing into, family office companies?
I'll give you an example from my childhood days. So I'm 38 years of age, and about 20 years back when we used to shop those days, when I had gone to pick up a pair of jeans or sport shoes, you would not really see what is going behind bringing those things, right? It could be a price tag. It could be just a color of a pattern. The most important factor was, how are these things made? What impact does it bring to the environment when you are really manufacturing such things? So I think those factors were avoided. Speaking of today, I think the next generation and the family office teams, the concept itself, they are dwelling more into sustainability on ESG parameters.
Okay. And what metrics or frameworks do families use to track impact?
I think most importantly, if you see the thumb rule from banks, from hedge funds, there's something called ESG parameters. And these parameters will have ESG ratings. And these ratings play a very important role. A fund manager or a asset manager would eventually lose a lot of assets if his ratings are not in place. And if your ratings are not coded correctly, there's something called SEC in US. They are really looking at those companies, those family offices, hedge funds who are not putting the ratings correctly on the table. So I think screening those things timely is really important.
Okay. And can you share a success story of sustainable investing that inspired you?
There are many. I think the closest to my heart is Lucas Walton. He is I think grandson of Walmart family. And if you read about him, he is just 39 years of age. And Shruti, he has earmarked almost $15 billion of assets from his personal capital towards ESG requirements. It is no smaller commitment. If you compare any leader today, okay, we do assign some, percentage of our funds, of our net returns toward ESG parameters, but towards, these initiatives, I think 15 billion from his overall net worth, it's sense.
Okay. And what are some common hurdles family offices face when going green?
When going green, I think the first and biggest hurdle is your strategy needs to match with the complex of the instrument. So if you are going sustainable, you have to really see, are you really taking care of sustainable in a long-term strategy? If it makes sense, you are there. Otherwise, it's a long process. It's not done over a short period of time. It needs 5, 7, 10, 20 years to plan sustainability, to plan investments in that scheme of things. Returns don't generate on day one. Returns and the function of those transactions takes a period.
No, and I think this is a key word that I'm noticing in most of the podcasts and the interviews we're doing is that think long term.
Yes.
Don't expect for returns to happen immediately.
True.
This is not an overnight transition. It's not an overnight process, and they're not overnight values. They will culminate. Be patient. So I hope these are all little pieces that you can pick up on and realize that you're not alone. Be patient, and sustainability truly is the way forward. But
that's true.
Talking more about a little bit of challenges. How can smaller family offices begin the sustainability journey without big budgets?
I think budget is not the most important thing. The most important part here, Shruti, is duration, time value. So if you're investing for next 10 years, 20 years, you cannot ignore sustainability. And speaking of how can small family offices, small investment firms can focus on ESG parameters, is just thinking clearly what the goals are, what the objectives are. And diversification plays a very important role. And when you diversify, you have to then and there decide, am I following those checks or not?
Okay. How can family balance impact long-term wealth preservation?
Again, a very interesting question. I think you have thought through all these things very closely. So, 3 things I'll divide these answers in. So, first of all, you have to understand private equity and private debt. And when you're going in that space, the family balance has to understand what kind of asset class can go illiquid. If you're talking about illiquid, illiquidity premium is really very high from those investments. And then you can part some asset classes towards climate change control, towards agri-farming, towards ocean control cleaning. So all these things go hand in hand. Yeah.
Okay, so since you spoke about private equity, real estate, which asset class from these do you think show the most promise for sustainability?
Which asset class? I believe renewable energy is most easy. It's something that we have been seeing as we were growing. And if you were to travel to Europe and you will see all those wind energy mills, those power stations, I think they are the easiest ones to bring up. And then comes private equity, private debt, because there you can allocate funds purely for those asset classes. Climate change for that matter, if you want to invest in that space. Shruti, the easiest way is to find the best private equity player who is partnering with big firms, and we just partner with them.
And what role does risk management play when investing sustainably?
I think it's a huge role. Ignoring any ESG risk today is as good as getting inflation numbers incorrect. So you cannot have a situation where you are investing for long term and you are not focused towards sustainability. So the risks are way too high. Regulators are getting, closely watching you, what you're doing. You are printing your data, your financials, your fact sheets. So you cannot go unnoticed. You have to stay focused, you have to stay invested, and you have to stay committed, as I said before.
And you did talk about tracking ESG performances. So are there tools or platforms that you recommend to do the same?
I think MSCI World platform is one of the best things. So it's done by Morgan Stanley, and it's the cheapest tool also to evaluate performances. It's available, with all the banks, fund houses. In fact, if you look at the fact sheet nowadays, every fact sheet they have to implement and address the ESG parameters. What is the ESG rating? Are they complying? Yes or no? And then you will notice the asset size valuations. The portfolio valuations can, really impact the overall investment strategy terminology from that perspective.
Okay. How are global trends and regulations influencing family investments today?
I believe in two ways. First is, the focus approach and thinking towards, the goals. And again, single family office or multi-family office, or you talk about hedge funds. Every entity has a set parameter, a set investment guideline that they have to follow. So I think this becomes a Bible to follow.
Right.
And once you have that, your ESG sustainability, categories come into play.
Okay. And are there any key differences between how family offices in different regions, for example, approach sustainability, whether it's Asia, Europe, the Middle East?
I believe Europe is, really at the top. If you see Europe today, and if you saw Europe 10 years back, they were already following the ESG guidelines. If I talk about the family offices today, I think 55% of large family offices, single family offices, multi-family offices are now focused towards ESG. And in fact, the regulator wants them to, abide by it. Regulator is, checking their, investments, themes, their, platforms and portfolios. Coming to Asia, they're not there yet. In Asia, I think, Asian Pacific family offices are close to 50% towards sustainability. Middle East is catching up also at the same time. So I think 80 to 93% of younger family members are focusing on ESG integration. They are already focused at fiduciary responsibility that they have, in order to grow these investments.
Okay. And what do you think the family office of the future will look like?
So we're talking about the future. It has to be a decade of transformation. The transformation will be on AI. Transformation will be more towards, screening of asset classes. It will be on ESG. It will be on implementing the embedded softwares everywhere. Cybersecurity is the most important thing. You cannot ignore that. So I think these small fragments will, add to it. And most importantly, what I told you some time back, 15,000 family offices, $10 trillion of wealth. We're also going through a mega change of transfer of wealth. About $84 trillion of wealth is being transferred to the next gen. And that's where, the question answers. It becomes even more sensitive, to follow sustainability, more sensitive to, towards ESG parameters and guidelines. So I think it has to play a very important role.
Okay. Thank you so much for this insightful conversation and your time and wisdom. For everyone listening, whether you're part of a family office, an aspiring impact investor, or simply curious about where legacy meets purpose, we hope this sparked some ideas, gave you some insights for your own journey. Don't forget to keep watching the Green Generation podcast for more sustainable insights.